Maya Angelou said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." And that right there is the thesis of everything we are going to unpack today. Welcome to Rise and Thrive. I'm Shay Blackmon, founder and CEO of Shay Blackmon Consulting, DBA candidate in organizational leadership, and your weekly strategist for navigating corporate spaces with power, purpose, and your full self intact. This is episode 86, and we are in chapter 6 of my book, Rise and Thrive, a Black woman's blueprint for leadership excellence. Today's chapter is Negotiating for Advancement and Recognition. And I want to be clear about what this episode is not. This is not a generic ask for the raise tutorial. There are 1,000 of those on the internet, and most of them were written by people who have never had to calculate whether their assertiveness would be read as aggression before they open their mouth. This episode is strategy. Specifically, it is strategy designed for the reality that Black women experience in professional spaces, where the rules of negotiation are not applied equally and the penalties for self-advocacy are not distributed fairly. So whether you are preparing for a promotion conversation, a salary negotiation, a scope expansion, or simply the daily negotiation of being seen and valued accurately in your workplace, this one is for you. And by the time we finish, you are going to have frameworks, language, and a practical exercise that you can deploy this week. Not next quarter, this week. Let's get into it. The unequal playing field. Let me start with some honesty that should make everyone uncomfortable. Research consistently shows that Black women face steeper penalties for self-advocacy in professional settings than virtually any other demographic group. We receive lower initial offers, we are judged more harshly when we counter, and we face what researchers call the double bind. Appear too assertive and you are labeled aggressive. Appear too accommodating and you are undervalued. Either way, you lose, unless you have a strategy. And that is exactly what Chapter 6 of Rise and Thrive provides. The entire chapter is built on the premise that negotiation is a learnable, practicable skill, and that when Black women approach it with the right frameworks, we do not just level the playing field, we redesign it. The first framework I want to walk through is the Power Preparation Framework, and I named it Power deliberately because preparation is how you reclaim agency in a system that was not designed with your advancement in mind. The Power Framework. P stands for Position Your Value. Before you walk into any negotiation, you need to have documented your contributions with precision. Not vague generalities like, "I work hard," quantified impact, revenue influenced, projects delivered, problems solved, processes improved, time saved. You need to be able to speak to your value in the language of results because results are harder to dismiss than effort. O stands for Outline Your Objectives. This is where most people, not just Black women, underperform. They walk into a negotiation knowing they want more, but without defining what more actually looks like. In the book, I break this into 3 tiers: your primary goal, which is the ideal outcome, your secondary objectives, which are additional wins you would welcome, and your walkaway point, which is the minimum you are willing to accept. If you do not know your walkaway point before the conversation starts, you are negotiating without a floor. And negotiating without a floor is how you end up thanking someone for an outcome that cost you. W stands for Widen Your Options. This is critical. Negotiation is not just about salary. It is about the total package of your professional experience. Professional development budgets, flexible work arrangements, high visibility project assignments, title adjustments, resource allocation, leadership exposure opportunities. When you widen the conversation beyond a single number, you create multiple pathways to a win, and you also demonstrate strategic thinking, which reinforces why you deserve the advancement in the first place. E stands for Establish Your Evidence. Market research, internal equity data, industry benchmarks, performance review documentation, competitor analysis. You need an evidence base that is so thorough it would hold up in court. Not because you are going to court, but because evidence-based requests are exponentially harder to dismiss than feeling-based requests. And when you are a Black woman in a corporate negotiation, your feelings will be scrutinized regardless. So let the data do the heavy lifting. And R stands for rehearse your delivery. Practice with mentors, peers, your mirror, your phone's voice recorder. Prepare responses to the 3 or 4 most likely objections. Refine your opening statement until it feels natural, not scripted. Because confidence in delivery comes from repetition, and repetition requires rehearsal. Now here's the connection to my high-value leadership methodology. The authentic connection pillar of high-value leadership teaches that real relationships are built on mutual respect and honest communication. Negotiation at its best is exactly that. It is an honest conversation about value exchange. When you approach it from that framework, you are not begging for something you do not deserve. You are proposing an alignment between your demonstrated value and your compensation or position. That is a fundamentally different energy, and the people on the other side of the table can feel it. Now, let me get into the part of this conversation that makes a lot of leadership consultants uncomfortable, the double bind. Because I cannot talk about negotiation for Black women without talking about the system that makes negotiation harder for Black women. The double bind is not a myth. It is not an excuse. It is documented, researched, peer-reviewed reality. When Black women negotiate with the same assertiveness as their white male counterparts, they are more likely to face backlash, more likely to be perceived as difficult, and more likely to have their requests denied. That is not a confidence problem. That is a systemic problem, and it requires systemic strategy. In the book, I lay out what I call the strategic balance approach, and it has 5 components. First, frame assertiveness as advocacy. Instead of saying, "I need a raise," reframe as, "This adjustment ensures fair market alignment for this role and positions our team to retain top talent." You are not making a demand. You are making a business case. Same outcome, different framing. Dramatically different reception. Second, use collaborative language without weakening your position. There is a difference between collaboration and capitulation. Let's explore how we can make this work. Is collaborative. I know this is probably asking too much, but is capitulation. The first opens a door. The second builds your own barrier. Third, leverage data over emotion. I mentioned this in the Power Framework, and it is worth repeating because it is that important. When you let the data carry the weight of your argument, you reduce the opportunity for subjective bias to derail the conversation. Market research indicates is a statement that demands engagement with facts. I feel like I am underpaid is a statement that invites dismissal. Both can be true. Only one is strategically effective. Fourth, build alliance networks before you need them. This goes back to Chapter 3 on strategic networking. Your sponsor, your allies, your advocates should already know about your contributions and your trajectory. When they speak on your behalf, whether in the room or behind closed doors, their advocacy amplifies your case in ways that self-advocacy alone cannot achieve in a biased system. And fifth, control the narrative. This means proactively shaping how your request is perceived. Acknowledge organizational constraints before they are used against you. Express genuine commitment to company success. Demonstrate flexibility on secondary items while holding firm on your primary objective. You are not performing gratitude. You are demonstrating the kind of strategic sophistication that reinforces exactly why you belong in a more senior role. I want to sit with Maya Angelou's words for a moment longer, because I think there is a layer that often gets missed. When she said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them," she was not offering a self-help platitude. She was articulating a survival strategy refined over a lifetime of navigating systems that attempted to reduce her at every turn. Maya Angelou knew negotiation, not in the corporate salary table sense, but in the deepest sense. She negotiated her identity in spaces that demanded she diminish it. She negotiated her voice in rooms that preferred her silence. She negotiated her presence in industries that commodified Black women's stories while marginalizing Black women's careers. And she did it not by becoming someone else, but by becoming more fully herself. That is the model. Think about what she achieved. She went from a childhood marked by trauma and imposed silence to becoming a poet, memoirist, educator, actress, director, and Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. Every single transition in her career required negotiation, not just with employers or publishers, but with a society that had predetermined what a Black woman from Stamps, Arkansas was allowed to become. Every book she published was a negotiation with the literary establishment. Every stage she stood on was a negotiation with the entertainment industry. And she approached every one of those negotiations not from a position of desperation, but from a position of unshakable self-knowledge. That is what the power framework is designed to give you. Not just tactics for a meeting, a foundation for a career. Bell Hooks said, "To be changed by ideas was pure pleasure." And I think about that in the context of negotiation because here's the idea I want to change you with today. Negotiation is not selfish. Let me say that again. Negotiation is not selfish. For Black women, successful negotiation is an act of institutional transformation. Every time you negotiate fair compensation, you create a data point that challenges the pay gap. Every time you negotiate a promotion, you create visibility that reshapes what leadership looks like. Every time you negotiate additional resources for your team, you model the kind of advocacy that other Black women will learn from and replicate. Your negotiation is never just about you. It is about every woman who comes after you and inherits the precedent you set. That is not pressure. That is purpose. And when you negotiate from purpose, you carry a different kind of authority into the room. In Rise and Thrive, I also reference Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's powerful observation that the single story creates stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. Your negotiation is your opportunity to tell the complete story of your value, not the reduced version that implicit bias offers, not the diminished version that the double bind attempts to enforce. The full, evidence-based, strategically framed, unapologetically comprehensive story of what you bring and what you deserve. Let me bring this into 2026 for a moment, because the current professional landscape makes this conversation more urgent than ever. We are in a period where many organizations are restructuring, flattening hierarchies, redefining roles, and in some cases, quietly rolling back commitments to equity and inclusion. That means the negotiation landscape has shifted. Fewer formal promotion cycles means advancement increasingly depends on your ability to advocate for yourself outside of structured processes. Tighter budgets mean compensation conversations require more sophisticated business case positioning. And the rollback of some DEI initiatives means the systemic support structures that were never sufficient to begin with are becoming even thinner. This is not a reason to retreat. This is a reason to sharpen your strategy. Let me walk you through how this plays out practically. There was a company in the manufacturing sector, a mid-size operation going through a significant restructuring. Several leadership roles were being redefined, and a Black woman who had been performing at a senior level for 2 years was told her role would be reevaluated. Now, reevaluated can mean a lot of things, and most of them are not good if you are not proactive. Instead of waiting to be told what her new role would look like, she did something strategic. She documented every initiative she had led, every metric she had moved, every process she had improved. She researched the market value of the redefined role at comparable companies. She identified 3 specific ways her expertise aligned with the company's stated strategic priorities for the next fiscal year. And then she requested a meeting. Not to ask what was happening to her role, but to present a proposal for what the role should become and why she was the person to lead it. That is the power framework in action. Position your value, outline your objectives, widen your options, establish your evidence, rehearse your delivery. She did not wait to be reduced. She decided what her role should be and built the case for it. I have seen variations of this scenario play out across every industry I have worked in, from automotive to healthcare to professional services. The women who navigate these moments successfully are not necessarily the most talented in the room. They are the most prepared. And preparation is a skill, not a trait, which means it is learnable, which means you can start building it today. All right, exercise time. I call this the 72-hour negotiation prep sprint, and it is designed to take you from, I should probably ask for something, to, I am walking into that conversation prepared. Day 1 is your evidence day. You are going to spend 30 to 45 minutes documenting your top 5 contributions from the past 12 months. For each one, write down the situation, what you did, and the measurable result. Revenue generated, costs reduced, processes improved, problems solved, teams developed, clients retained. Quantify everything you can. If you do not have exact numbers, use estimates and note them as such. The goal is to build what the Shield Resilience Strategy Guide calls your evidence file, a running record of your positive feedback, problems solved, achievements, and milestones. If you do not already have one, today is the day you start it. Day 2 is your intelligence day. Research 3 things: the market value of your role using sites like Glassdoor, PayScale, and LinkedIn Salary Insights, any recent promotions, raises, or title changes within your organization that set precedent, and your company's current strategic priorities, because you need to connect your request to what leadership already cares about. Day 3 is your rehearsal day. Write your opening statement. It should be 2 to 3 sentences maximum. Practice it until you can deliver it without reading it. Then identify the 3 most likely objections you will face and write a 1-sentence response to each. Practice those too. If you have a trusted peer, mentor, or sponsor, rehearse the full conversation with them. If not, use your phone's voice recorder. Play it back, refine, repeat. 72 hours. That is all it takes to move from passive to prepared. And the difference between those two states is the difference between hoping for recognition and strategically positioning for it. I want to give you one more practical tool because the language piece is where so many negotiations are won or lost, and it is especially critical for us as Black women navigating the double bind. This exercise is called the Value Reframe Script Builder, and it comes directly from the Value Framework in Chapter 6. I want you to take a negotiation scenario you are currently facing or one you anticipate in the next 60 days and write 3 versions of the same request. Version 1 is the unfiltered version, the raw, honest ask. Something like, I deserve a raise. I have been doing more work for the same pay for 2 years. Write it. Get it out. This is for you, not for the meeting. Version 2 is the strategic reframe using the value framework from the book. V is vision alignment. Connect your request to organizational goals. A is achievement anchoring, grounded in proven performance. L is long-term perspective, show future value creation. U is unique value proposition, highlight what makes your contribution irreplaceable. E is evidence-based justification, support with data. So, version 2 might sound like, based on my leadership of our process improvement initiative, which reduced defect rates by 23%, and my expanded oversight of cross-functional operations, I am requesting salary alignment with market benchmarks for this scope of responsibility, which positions me to drive our Q3 expansion goals. Version 3 is the objection-ready version. Take version 2 and add a preemptive acknowledgement of the most likely pushback. I understand we are operating within tight budget parameters this cycle. I have identified a phased approach that aligns this adjustment with our fiscal calendar while ensuring we maintain competitive positioning for this role. 3 versions, same request, progressively more strategic. When you can see the evolution from version 1 to version 3 on paper, you internalize the reframing skill. And that skill will serve you in every negotiation for the rest of your career. Save all 3 versions. The unfiltered version reminds you of your truth. The strategic version is your script. The objection-ready version is your contingency plan. That is comprehensive preparation. Now, I want to connect this to your personal resilience because negotiation is not just strategic work, it is emotional work. And the emotional toll of advocating for yourself in spaces that have historically undervalued you is real. It accumulates. And if you do not have a system for processing it, that accumulation eventually undermines the very confidence you need to negotiate effectively. The Shield Resilience Strategy Guide addresses this directly. The internal resources pillar is about building unshakable confidence through practices that are grounded in evidence, not wishful thinking. The guide includes what I call the evidence file, which I mentioned in the exercise, but it goes deeper. It is a living document of positive feedback you have received, problems you have solved successfully, achievements and milestones, and appreciation from colleagues. When imposter syndrome shows up the night before a negotiation, and it will, you open your evidence file and let the facts recalibrate your self-perception. The guide also includes the STOP method for emotional regulation. Stop what you are doing, take 3 deep breaths, observe your emotions without judgment, and proceed with intention. That 4-step process is invaluable in the moments immediately before and during a negotiation, because your ability to stay grounded when the conversation gets uncomfortable is often the difference between a successful outcome and a reactive one. And the Values Anchor exercise asks 3 questions that are perfect pre-negotiation grounding. What response aligns with my core values? How can I handle this with integrity? And what would I advise someone I mentor? When you answer those questions before you walk into the room, you are negotiating from your center rather than from your anxiety. The Shield Guide is a free resource. Download it. The link is in the description. Let me leave you with this. Maya Angelou did not say you will not face events that try to reduce you. She said you can decide not to be reduced by them. The decision is yours. And every tool we cover today, the power framework, the strategic balance approach, the value framework, the 72-hour prep sprint, the value reframe script builder, these are the instruments of that decision. They are how you move from hoping to negotiating, from accepting to advocating, from surviving to thriving. Your advancement is not just personal, it is precedent setting. Every successful negotiation you execute changes what is possible for the Black woman who comes after you. That is not pressure, that is legacy. And you are building it whether you realize it or not. If you want the complete frameworks, all the templates, the full negotiation preparation template with every section mapped out, Chapter 6 of Rise and Thrive, A Black Woman's Blueprint for Leadership Excellence goes deep. The link to grab your copy is in the description. And if you want to take this work further with structured implementation and community support, the High Value Leadership Intensive waitlist is open. That link is in the description as well. Now here is my ask for you this week. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is the negotiation you have been putting off? Is it a raise, a promotion, a scope change, a boundary? Name it. Because the moment you name it, it stops being an abstract fear and starts becoming a strategic project. And if your question is specific enough, it might show up in a future Ask Shay segment. And do not forget, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I am on the Unlock, Empower, Transform podcast covering high-value leadership strategies for all leaders. But Wednesdays are ours. I'm Shay Blackmon. Rise and thrive.